Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good, all things considered. We can't just do our usual sort of preamble, talk about nonsense, because by the time people are listening to this, Josh, it's like 24 hours to the next deadline.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else. Like, we can't talk about nonsense because of everything that's going on in the U.S. and, you know.
There's too much nonsense.
The stakes are too high.
About, yeah.
No. You're saying we have like 36 hours to the deadline. That's true, actually. This should be like an 18-minute pod, really. Mm-hmm. You know, just get in and get out.
You know, people are talking a lot about the doomsday clock these days, and you think that they're talking about World War III, but they're actually talking about the deadline for GW27.
Yeah, aka the doomsday clock. Yeah, it's always 1 minute to midnight. You know, It's like, and it's so funny because it's like part of me wonders if those like a bulletin of the atomic scientist, or whatever, it's like they just deep down, do they kind of want there to be like a limited nuclear war, like not a big one, but just so that they can like they actually like can be proven right, because they've been at like 1 second to midnight for like 75 years now. You know, it's a long time to be right there. It's like,
Well, what fun is having these toys if we don't get to break them? I mean, that was Oppenheimer's whole thing, is we have to drop the bomb. I can't believe we're talking about this, but here we are. We have
people
to drop
don't really
the bomb
listen to this, Brandon.
For what it can
I'm not
do.
sure how many listeners are really here for deadline day advice. Let's be honest with ourselves here. So yeah, please finish your thought.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, thoughts and prayers to everybody out there. And I think like the real Oppenheimer
is in all of us. Yeah, I think you're right. There's a little Oppenheimer in every single one of us.
What if they changed the name of the assistant manager chip to the Oppenheimer chip, and you got to pick like a nuclear physicist to be a part of your team? That would really be a game breaker, I think. Talk about OP.
That's true. You know, you bring up the assistant manager, and I guess we can actually. I think we can just get into it right away, because you and I have now wrapped our assistant manager chip. That we had multiple questions about the assistant manager chip. And Boston Prof asked, now that the assistant manager chip is behind many of us, not everybody, but many people, what's your overall evaluation of it, right? So quick recap. This year, there was a fourth mystery chip, right? That was announced. I think it was announced in December, if I'm not mistaken.
Did they? Yes. So they announced the mystery chip as "quote unquote" mystery at the start of the season, and then they unveiled.
Unveiled. Yes, they unveiled.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, exactly. Announcing and unveiling. There was a gala. I think there was a ribbon cutting ceremony actually at Stockley Park.
Right. If we lived in the UK, I'm sure we would have been invited, but they knew it would have been a bit of a lift for us.
Probably raining the whole time anyway. You know?
True.
So there was. So they announced this chip. The chip, allows you to pick a manager that you have on your fantasy team for 3 weeks, basically, and you sort of get fantasy points based on what the manager does, right? So that's basically the essence of the chip. It's funny because we sort of thought it did get kind of complicated, because you had to use transfers to bring in the managers. You had to use your actual money to bring in the managers as well. It wasn't like, if you play the triple captainship, you don't have to like give official FPL 2 million or something like that to play it.
The chip burdened FPL managers. It said, hey, here's infrastructure doesn't come for free. If you don't like the condition of the roads, we're going to have to raise taxes.
Exactly.
That sort of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it was the congestion pricing of fantasy content.
Yeah.
So anyway, they introduce it, and I guess my thoughts, so I would say my thoughts are not that influenced by my catastrophic move of Slot to Arteta, which I didn't even like necessarily even need to make, but I didn't have any like urgent transfer needs this week, and I really don't this week as well. And so it's like going into game week 27, and so it kind of felt like maybe Man City, maybe it's a draw, maybe it's 2-1. Yeah, like maybe a draw, possibly even a Man City win. I don't know. Like, it just felt like there was at least a possibility of it. What are the harder fixtures in theory on Liverpool's schedule? Arsenal playing a kind of limping West Ham team. Let's go for it. And so obviously,
Arsenal, much just before you finish that thought, how much of it to making the transfer to Arteta was like, I've got the chip, like let's let's use it.
Yeah.
Like the juice is actually engaging with the chip, right?
I think that is part of it. Yeah. And although, viewed through that lens, I feel like I really didn't. I mean, if I'd known I was going to get 0 points from Arteta, I might as well have just punted on whatever, punted on anybody, right? Yeah. I mean, I could have punted on Pep, like sort of. I mean, of course, hindsight being 2020 and all that. And so, obviously Glasner was the one to go with this week because, and I just I get it. I think I was just, like from a strategic point of view, you got the bonus if they won. I just thought that Fulham would win, and like it was.
If Fulham hadn't done so well against Forest the game week before, I think some of us would have considered Crystal Palace more strongly. Yeah. But there was this belief, and I talked about this with our Patreon supporters right before the deadline of weighing sort of like probable outcomes versus basically just gambling on wish fulfillment. Yep. And I think what we've learned about the assistant manager chip is it really is only going to reward gambling as far as like going for the guaranteed outcome, which you tried to do with Arteta. Yeah. Just sort of like, what's the quickest way to like 5 to 10 points? And really it just pales. The Arteta, even Slot is falling behind other managers like Marco Silva or Glasner or David Moyes.
Yeah, I mean, do we have? I feel like they did something kind of. I don't know. I feel like the assistant manager chip shows fixtures that you really couldn't have played the chip in, but regardless, like at the top of the table right now, I guess it goes back 6 weeks. You have David Moyes, right? Bottom of the table, Everton squad. Pereira, another bottom of the table squad, is in second. Slot is in third, but they did have back-to-back double game weeks, right? So there's obviously...
He's just had more fixtures than everybody else in the manager's line.
Yep. And then, Silva is in... Silva's in fourth, right? So, I mean, I think the thing is, like, the Glasner thing worked out, but, and every single person who had Glasner either, posted about it or created an account so that they could post about it, right? And so, but I mean, surely there were a lot of people out there who punted on, I don't know, like Southampton or Ipswich or
McKenna did feel like he had the same promise and even more so than Glasner because he had the home fixture. He was playing against a team that wasn't necessarily in the same form as we would judge as Fulham was.
He outscored Arteta by 1 point, but
dare
still
to dream, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and so I think my feeling now that I'm done with the chip for the year, and it was kind of tricky too because you couldn't play any other chips during that time, and so I still kind of view it through the lens of it costing me triple captain Salah, right, in game week 24, which I was 100% on until I kind of convinced myself the assistant manager chip was the way to go.
Well, that was the announcement of the double in game week 25 that ultimately shifted everyone, a lot of people from triple cap Salah in 24 to assistant manager.
Yeah. In hindsight, the move was triple captain Salah in 24, assistant manager in 25. Yeah. And then if you had gone for, I guess Emery, you probably would have been if you'd gone like Emery to Glasner. I don't know. Right. I mean, like, obviously, like you could build a best case scenario. I guess my feeling is I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It doesn't really feel like FPL to me, right? It doesn't feel like it is a kind of fantasy, I guess, manager fantasy. It's like, there's a kind, it's like, I like that the match outcomes matter. Right. And that goals and clean sheets are a factor. It's like, it almost paves the way for a game that's like not FPL, right? It's like, if this is like a dry run for a non FPL game that involves like, maybe it's like one player and one manager. And, cause I think I was sort of, in hindsight, like, earlier I was like, oh, this is going to feel more like gambling, right? Like where you're like betting on teams, stuff like that. But I think in the end, it actually did feel like fantasy. It just didn't feel like fantasy the way that the FPL game is kind of played, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree on, I think, both fronts in that it was fun and an interesting change of pace to engage with the assistant manager chip. I don't want to do it again. And I think the FPL game is at its finest and at its strongest when it's the simplest.
Right.
And, we've all kind of gotten used to chip theory and, the right times to play it and just adding and because we're used to it, maybe we don't consider it like the anti-simplification of the game, but we've been playing long enough to know what it was like pre-chip. And I just think that's the strength of FPL is having fans of the Premier League focus on the players themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, I mean, actually I would be happy to do away with all chips.
Same. And captaincy probably.
I mean, I can see the captaincy just adding like a little bit of juice to the season. I think the captaincy in some ways is sort of almost overrated in the sense that like, if you just pick the best captain, it's going to work out in the long run. It's actually, I find that I think about the captaincy a lot less than I used to, right? Because there's sort of like, it's like, well, just pick, whether it's Holland in previous seasons or Salah this year, I just pick them every week, and 3 game weeks out of 4, in Salah's case, 4 game weeks out of 4, it's just going to keep delivering. And I just sort of think about other things, whether those are fantasy things or think about my
grocery list,
what I want to do this summer. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
I got some bad news for you though, Josh, because there is a legit captaincy conversation to be had for game week 27. I mean, you could argue there really isn't, but it kind of folds in.
We can have it.
Absolutely. It's our podcast. Step back. We're going to do what we want. But it also just plays into the larger question. Surely we have a section coming up that's all about Cole Palmer.
Well, there is a question about Palmer, yes, in the Game Week 27 preview. So we'll get to that in a second.
Okay, all right.
Why don't you quickly recap your game week, though? You had a pretty good one, right?
I'll share my for those watching on the YouTube. I'll share my screen, and you can be dazzled by my points. I finished on 92 with Slot in the assistant manager. So I think my thought process going into the deadline was I had 2 free transfers. I had decided right away to get rid of Ahmad, who was out for the season, and brought in an informed Bournemouth midfielder. And if I had downgraded Slot to a cheaper assistant manager, I could have afforded to get Kluivert. But my sense was just Dango was as good a pick as Kluivert. Went for him, and that kind of let me go up to the deadline with enough money to keep Slot, move him to Arteta, and I was kind of like going back and forth. And ultimately, thinking about game week 29, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit with the blanks for Aston Villa, Liverpool, Newcastle, and Crystal Palace, it got me really weighing the assistant manager transfer as a 4-point shift. Is that free transfer going to be worth just rolling with Slot? And then talking about what I thought the probable outcomes were. I was like, well, if I'm betting on Arteta to win, and I totally agree with you in terms of the sort of the Arsenal match felt more certain than the Liverpool City match. So that was like my mini gamble there.
I think you did get it a little bit, which is like, well, I've got this chip, I might as well use it. And I think that actually was a little bit of my thinking there, right? It was like, well, it's like let's have fun with this, right? And I think obviously so but I think I feel like maybe I didn't really think it through because there was really just no reason to think the Man City were going to win that match, right? So I think you obviously made the right call. You're rewarded with 10 points above me and an additional transfer, which is like it's roughly 4 points of value right there.
Yeah, I feel like I've been grumbling a bit the last few weeks. I've been treading water around 250K, and this is, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of wind back in my sails. I went up 55K, so I'm up to let's see, my OR is 193K. And things like kind of like the the variant stuff actually went my way this time around, because it was Vissa in my lineup who was not getting any points the last couple of game weeks. It was Alisson Becker in goal that kept getting outdone by Trent in the Liverpool defense. And finally this week, Becker gets the 8-pointer, Wissa gets the 8-pointer, and this was the edge that I really just needed to get a sizable green arrow. So feeling really good about that. And now I'm just kind of thinking about game week 29 and particularly my Villa guys and Rodgers and Watkins, and both of them probably not long for my team and will be the first ones out in the next couple of deadlines.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Rodgers out as well, possibly as soon as like tonight. He is 90. I actually was just checking as you were talking. He's at 99.9% to drop. Okay. So it's kind of sad. I think I've had him like almost the entire season.
Let's see. He's up to that's Ollie Watkins. What's his value up to? He's at 5.7, started the season at 5.0. Yeah. So a lot of managers are going to have a lot of value wrapped up in him. And those are always the tough ones. Particularly, it's like always the budget guys who you accumulate value in, who are actually like they're easy to get back, but you feel like it's just bad investing to drop such a stock.
Even though it's not, right? It's like it's good. Like you're selling, like they're, other people are going to sell and you get to sell with having made some money. So it's
right. Yeah. But if you and if you look at Rodgers' points production just in FPL, I still think he's been playing really well. Yeah. But it just simply doesn't translate into fantasy points. You have to go back to game week 21 where he had any return, and that was a mere 6 points. So for a guy who plays every match, he's just not doing enough fantasy wise.
And he's heavily involved in all the matches as well. But he cuts a really frustrated figure too. I mean, he gets really angry on the pitch. He gets lots of yellow cards. He's a little, I think in some ways it's a good quality, like that kind of fire. Yeah. I like him. I find him easy to root for, but fantasy wise, he's just, it's probably past time, honestly, to sell him. So,
yeah. All right. How are you feeling about your game week 26?
Yeah, not as good. Honestly, it was just because of the assistant manager move. Otherwise, if I had just not made a move, I would be fine. I was on 77. So if I had just, held slot, I'd be on 87, which would be great. I'm on like a little red arrow. I think I lost 30K points or something like that. But, a little like, it was one of those weeks where everyone who did well for me, though, was like a highly owned player, right? Outside of, I guess, Dean Henderson, who's been low-key fantastic for me the last 10 weeks or so, one of my best players.
I tell you, I do watch him on the TV and with his little floppy haircut, which, he wears it well. He really just reminds me of the elf in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
The old 1970s one,
like the stop motion animation one. Yeah, look it up. It's Dean Henderson.
Is that the Yukon Cornelius?
Or that's the one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'll have to take a. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about now. There is a woodenness to his face, right? That's sort of
and he does look like he'd rather be a dentist.
That is true.
Sorry, I cut you off.
The one nice thing, by the way, about being done with the assistant managership is I have an extra 1.5 million in my budget now.
Yeah, so that's a real war chest for sure. Yeah, I'm on a 2.2 in the bank as well. So we could just shop for. The whole it felt like Holland was going to be a discussion we'd have to have, but the mystery remains as to where his whereabouts, his injury abouts.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do actually with my transfer yet. If I moved Rodgers out, like the FPL review approved move would be Rodgers to Trossard, but it's really hard to have any. And now we can start talking a little bit about the game week 26. I want to get to game week 27 earlier than we have in some past game, get to the fixture ahead just because it's 2 days away. But I think talking about this weekend informs my thoughts about the midweek for sure, right? Because Arsenal are, they made a huge gamble, right? Which is that they could, they didn't need to buy a forward, even though all of their forward players were injured. They could play Kai Havertz out of position, and as long as in every match, I guess that was the idea. And as long as he didn't get injured, they would sort of muddle their way. And like, it just didn't feel like, in hindsight, it's like, yes, was it good value to buy Ollie Watkins? Probably not. Like, it probably was for the best that it didn't work out, but it looks like them not buying a forward is probably going to cost them the title this season. Like, if they had any realistic shot at it. Sure. So that is a kind of a bummer, right? It's like,
I would argue
I think they're just going to roll to the title now.
Yeah, I would argue that Arsenal's best chance at the title really is next season, and has been next season for a few months at this point.
Yeah.
So
just tricky, because if Man City, they'll have Rodri back if they reset, right? Like, sometimes you just have a crazy year where everything goes wrong, and then I don't know. You're right. I mean, next season, I think Liverpool could definitely look quite a lot different too, right?
It seems like Trent and Salah are likely on their way out, and Slot's he's probably going to want to put his stamp on that team, and he likes to play a slightly more conservative version. But I do think, like, not getting Ollie in the January window for Arsenal, it could open the door for Isak, who I think is a better player at this point in their career.
I mean,
and then Arsenal looked that much better, possibly going into next season.
I guess the real problem was not buying a forward last summer.
Yeah, right. Yes, yeah.
I mean,
get it together.
That's the original sin here.
Yeah.
So well, anyway, so
we're talking about Arsenal in terms of how they looked against West Ham, and I like, just to pick up where you left off, is the squad that is this threadbare, of course, was just going to run out of gas and come into some real fatigue. And playing at home against not a great West Ham side, they just looked, even against Leicester, right, the game week before, they were struggling to really get anything going. And I don't think that you don't get the sense that that's really going to change with Arsenal, because they're not, it's good to see Ben White come back, but the squad depth still is going to pose that fatigue problem, and they'll become a hard team to bet on.
No Saka, no Martinelli, no Havertz, no Gabriel Jesus, no Lewis Skelly. For a couple of weeks. And and then, I mean, defensively they're fine. And I thought they might just be able to muddle their way through. But I think we saw today, the real problem is going to be if the other team ever scores first, right? If the other team ever gets a goal on them, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I think that's what West Ham successfully did today. I mean, it was really down the stretch there. I felt like it was like the 97th minute of 98 where Arsenal were like finally like mounting an attack. It really wasn't until they had until Raya actually came up on a corner that I felt like they might have a chance to score.
Yeah, Raya pulled out all the moves there at the end of the match.
That's true. He had that little midfield like move as well. James Ward-Prowse. They were making fun of him, but I have to say, who reminded me the most of James Ward-Prowse this weekend? Your boy Kevin De Bruyne, Brandon. Kevin De Bruyne is now he now plays like James Ward-Prowse. It makes me very sad.
I turned the volume up all the way on my TV. It was really interesting. You could actually hear Kevin De Bruyne's joints like squeaking,
creaking. I didn't know you were allowed to play with a cane until I watched that match. It felt like
it's an inclusivity sort of project for the Premier League,
which I think is great. I felt like it could be. I guess it's like a fiberglass thing. Maybe it's safe.
What if they let KDB play in a power chair? That would be pretty cool.
like a murder, or whatever that murder ball or whatever that called.
I'm thinking like one of those motorized chairs that you get at the grocery store.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like in Friday Night Lights when the guy like loses his legs.
Oh, sure, that too. All of it. Yeah. What he different chairs for different scenarios, right? Exactly. Different game states.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me sad to see him because Salah is like the same age, and Salah still is like
he's fitter than he's ever been.
It's so wild. I mean, I watched an NBA game last night. The Lakers were in Denver, and it's actually always fun when you get to introduce somebody, in this case my wife, to Nikola Jokic, who is the laconic superstar, but watching the game I was like, LeBron James is exactly as good as he was like 15 years ago. It is insane. Like in some ways even better now because he averages like 10 assists a game. It's crazy. Like he's it's, like maybe he's lost something. I don't even really know. I mean, it's averaging like 25, 10, and 10. But like that's what Salah is like. He's like, I mean, he's not quite as old as LeBron, but he's, he's in his 30s. He looks incredible. And like LeBron, he's figured out how to add passing to his game, right? He's like stepped that up in a huge way. Whereas KDB, scoring was never, I know this isn't very fantasy focused, but, scoring was never KDB's thing, but he could at least, like, even on free kicks, they didn't have him shooting today. Like,
he could really leather the ball and get it on target and just make the keeper work. He could really work the keeper.
Those outside the box, and also, like, he can't even really he doesn't have the pace anymore to do his specialty. Like, to me, the ultimate Kevin De Bruyne created goal is like the first 5 minutes of a game, dead sprint down the right-hand side of the pitch, right? Yeah. And then like a perfect cross to somebody.
He's just really good at shifting the ball in little ways on his feet to like get it. In ways that Trent does too. All right, so that's our good memorial for Kevin De Bruyne.
Poor KDB. Yeah, we made fun of him and said that he needed a wheelchair. But
any San Jose Quakes fans out there will be hoping they get KDB in the next MLS draft.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if he ends up coming to. He doesn't seem like somebody who would. I don't know. Who knows? I don't want to prejudge. Maybe he'll thrive in America, Brandon. We just don't know, do we?
No.
All right. So that is. I got to like a reset here on my notes for the weekend. Oh yeah. Well, Friday's match we had Brian Mbomo, who's now up to 3rd overall for FPL mids. He is having an absolutely spectacular season. Once again, last year he was great too until he had that ankle injury and lost, several months. He is now, let's see, his kind of counting stats. He's at 15 goals and 4 assists on the season. Given that he costs, he's up to 8 million now, but I mean, he started the season at 7, right? So it's he is one of the all-time performances from a kind of mid-priced.
Yeah, and there's some people were starting to lose patience with Mbomo going into this game week, but I do think all things considered, he's been really consistent for the player that you pick in fantasy. And the commentators are really like going in on this is Mbomo's farewell Brentford tour. So very curious to see what happens with his career after this season.
I mean, part of me is like, why don't you just be like the Jamie Vardy of Brentford, right? It's like when it's all said and done, it's like, is it cool to be like a squad option for a great team?
Yeah.
Or would you rather be like
Jamie Vardy? I get where you're going with Vardy because he's a legend there, but Vardy also won the Premier League, which offered him the opportunity to play in the Champions League.
That's true.
And Mboma has no opportunity to do that. There's no shot at Europe at Brentford at the moment.
Yeah, that's fair. And he is English. He's not English. And so it's like, it may be that just like being part of the same English club forever isn't quite as like,
he's not as tied to the community, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Where I forget what country, what his nationality is.
It's an African nation of,
Cameroon.
Yeah. That's
from Cameroon. Yeah, he's only 25 too. He's quite young. So yeah, you're probably right. I mean, honestly, the team that would be kind of cool to see him go to would be Villa. Like if Villa were able to squeak into a Champions League spot next year, which they probably won't. But
they could use a right-sided player. Rashford's picking up steam on the left. They could have quite a team.
I don't know. Yeah, they probably won't make the Champions League though. Unfortunately, it probably. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Man City could probably use him too if they would play him in the. I somehow feel like Pep would get him and he wouldn't play him on the right side. Somebody he would find some other.
Play it. Yeah, he'd center back.
Yeah, no, I think he'd turn him into like Kyle Walker, right? He'd be like the right-sided, sort of. Anyway, all right. Well, this is but he's awesome. If you don't have him for some reason, definitely go ahead. I will say I got more of an overall rank bump from him than I thought. Like in my head, he's one of those players that I thought was kind of universally owned, but he is. He's got. I don't know. He's certainly not. He's certainly still worth a buy.
Yeah, and Brentford do play in game week 29. Just hinted at those blanks earlier. So that's like Brentford players. You get them and you don't have to worry about them.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about the Crystal Palace match already, but another clean sheet for Palace. They have been really playing impressive the last, several weeks. Total turnaround from the first half of the season when it looked like they were like possible like relegation fodder, and now it's like who even knows, right? Like a possible like outside chance at like a European place or something.
I do have to concede. Earlier in the season, it looked like the wheels had come off of Palace, and then Joachim Andersen, who was like basically their general and center back with Gahey, and he opted to leave and go to Fulham. Yeah. And I have to concede after that match. I mean, we've been seeing a bad version of Joachim Andersen all season. I was like, okay, Palace knew what they were doing when they let Andersen go. They knew exactly what was going on. LaCroix has been an incredible replacement, and that system with 5 at the back is really working for them.
Harsh after the own goal, like really, they really did like stick the knife into Fulham. But I mean, my question here was actually about Anthony Robinson, who is having a kind of a rough stretch here. And I don't know. I mean, like, they play in 29, and so there's probably not any like real urgency here, but fixtures ahead aren't great, right? Way to Wolves, way to Brighton, home to Spurs. That's okay. But then, Arsenal, Liverpool, way to Bournemouth, which is now turning into quite a difficult fixture, I think, for defensive players. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like, I mean, you're sort of you're the Fulham guy, but also I think you've had Robinson. I think you and I both have had Robinson the entire season. So are you starting to soften, like I'm potentially moving him on?
Yeah, I could see moving him on. I think the thing about him from a fantasy strategy point of view is he is cheap enough to just bench, and he's like 10 assists on the season. There's still enough value with the player, regardless of Fulham's team form, to just hang on to him. Because I think who you'd replace him with, it's just like other precarious assets is my general feeling.
I think I'm with you there. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know, like if I had just like a luxury of transfers and I was kind of set for 29, maybe it's time to move on there. But I mean, he's the thing was like for a while there, he was getting like a handful of assists that were sort of covering for like Fulham conceding quite a number of goals. I mean, he's sneakily up to double-digit assists on the season. He's got 10, which is quite a lot. I mean, in the previous season, I guess he had 6 last year, so it's not. I think he's fine. He
talks endlessly in interviews about improving his final ball, and I think he knew that was always his weakness, crossing, and he's clearly improved it. Yeah, and that will probably help him get a pretty nice move this summer.
Well, Fulham they're still fine. I mean, they're 10th. I mean, they've won 3 of their last 5 matches. I don't want to turn into some massive inquest, but it does, at the very least, let's say this. I don't feel quite as automatic about starting Robinson as I did before.
So I would agree with that.
A little bit of a change there.
Yeah, it was always when you bench Robinson, you feel scared.
This is another just interesting note. Aston Villa don't play in 29, so in some ways it's less relevant for the kind of looking ahead. Although if you're going to free hit in 29, that's a different story. But Marco Asensio had a brace, and I thought he looked really good as well. Available for just $6 million in fantasy. Really attacking. Just play with a lot of fire too. Like I was really. I don't know. I was very taken with his performance in the match. So, what do you think of? Any thoughts on Marco Asensio?
I agree with your assessment and that he looks good. I mean, I think he immediately strengthens that team and adds just kind of like another level of quality to Villa.
Their first win in their last 5. They had 3 draws and a loss before that.
My concern with him about like an immediate pick, though, is he does kind of fill that Enzo Szoboszlai sort of role where, sure, he's got the brace, but it could be another like 6 or 7 matches before you see another attacking return from him.
Yeah. That's possible. I guess the nice thing about, because I'm not planning to free hit in 29, we have a couple more weeks to keep an eye on him, but that price at $6 million is certainly appealing.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Anything else I want to talk about? Oh yeah. So then we have today's matches. Newcastle Forest, kind of delivered for everyone. I have to say, I had Hall starting and then I benched him, and I mean, in the end, it worked out more or less okay because I got a clean sheet from Trent, but 3 assists for Lewis Hall. Where did this come from? I felt like
the one of them got chalked off in the end, I think.
Oh, did it?
I think it was the cross that ended up at the feet of Murphy that they had ended up chalking off.
Okay, right. So there's still two assists and 2 bonus. So
won the pen and had the assist to Miley. He looked great. Like he had the fire in him. He was also just making really great tackles and recoveries, and I think he's great.
I mean, previously to that, he had 2-1-0. So mathematically speaking, he should have had a -1 today, Brandon. That would have made the most sense.
Right. It's like the Robinson conversation though, of these guys who just go through patches of form and they have the potential, particularly the attacking fullbacks. And so, Hall's another one where I'm just like, there's no reason to sell this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, until
apart
29, I suppose, right? Yeah. Apart from the blank. But we still have, I guess, so the way it'll work out is we have matches. I mean, the thing is 29 is going to sneak up on us, right? Because we have matches in midweek, so 27, and then this weekend will be 28, right? We're not even going to talk about 28 because
there's a FA Cup is this coming weekend, so there's a weekend off, and I believe that's how it goes.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, so it's not going to actually come up that fast, is it?
No.
Well, anyway, the point is we have 27 on Tuesday, and then you got a free weekend ahead unless you're an FA Cup head. Which I mean, I like the FA Cup. I would like to see an FA Cup match in person, but watching on TV, I don't know. It's like maybe like further down. Like it's like I need to see a League 2 team actually make like a final or something like that, right? It's like I need to see some proper drama to get me
I mean, what about Portsmouth beating Liverpool? That's some proper drama.
That is true, and I wish I'd watched that. But the problem was, but to be realistic here, I wouldn't have watched that match, right? Because Liverpool are playing their C team, it's not even their B team, right? It was Liverpool were fine losing that match, right? And so if they're fine losing that match, why am I watching? What is my reason for watching the match in that case, right? So
only you can answer that question, Josh.
Well, yeah, and I did answer it by
emphatically
emphatically by not watching at all. All right, and then obviously we had Liverpool pretty much destroy Man City. I mean, it was kind of funny. The announcers were talking about, Man City do have more possession, and yeah, are you watching this match? So it's Liverpool are letting them have possession. They're fine
by design.
Yeah. There's nothing they can do with it. It's they have no one in the middle. Phil Foden's little 2-week renaissance is already over, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever.
Marmoush looked good again,
sure,
for what it's worth.
Yeah, and now he's the corner guy, so I guess that's something. There's some value there, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's Man City have done so well that they're allowed a little. They can handle some jibes from us for sure.
Yes.
All right. So that is the weekend. We should get into game week 27 here, Brandon. Did want to say quickly, thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support the podcast, a thank you to me and Brandon. You can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. You get an extra podcast each week, as well as an ad-free podcast feed, the Discord, mini leagues, all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that stuff that we toss in. But the real point is, I like this podcast, and I want to say thank you to Josh and Brandon. So that is the point there, Brandon. We have an actual Super League update. We haven't had one of those in a while.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Because we had a game week that actually ended. So why don't you read out the Super League here?
Happy to. We're going all the way down to 12th place because we've got 3 managers on a total of 1,913 points. So you all get shout-outs.
That's right.
And that's Akil Zahid, Jan Niemanen, and Edwin Williams. In 9th place, Reader Buscanes.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right.
That one.
Yeah.
8th place, Rauno Rutel, Kala Klopp.
Wow.
I got a real ACAB team here. Or this guy's more of a narc, if I'm reading this name correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
The King, Monsters FC in 6th place, Ruben Skov in 5th, Sebastian Frost in 4th, Ricky Ning in third place, Brian Rigero in second place. Holding it down in first, it's Jake Poplawski, related to Matt Poplawski from the Michigan State Spartans.
Wow.
And saw that incredible 2-point victory over the Wolverines.
Was
that Friday?
It was Friday night. Yeah.
Good,
very nice.
Good stuff. So Jake must be flying after that. Super League is free for anyone who listens to the pod. Just pop to alwayscheating.com and the auto join button. The league code's right there on the homepage.
Excellent. All right, Brandon, let's look ahead to game week 27. I will pull this up so that you and I can both take a look at it together as we're talking. We have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. In some ways, it feels like it is a Tuesday, Wednesday fixture, Brandon. The Thursday is, we talk a lot about the pure watch on this podcast. This might be one of the all-time pure watches, right? The collective ownership in this game will be less than, I don't even know, 0.5%. I guess there's some Jared Bowen owners.
There might be some Bowen curious people out there for sure. Yeah.
It's not a bad move, honestly.
No.
Okay. Now I am curious. Let's do a quick. Okay, let's do a quick peek here at the fixtures for West Ham. Leicester at home, Newcastle at home, Everton away, Wolves away in the next 4. You could do worse than a transfer to Jared Bowen, Brandon, for game week 27.
You could.
What is his price
love
now?
It.
I'm just doing this all for everybody.
He must be like 7.8 is what I'm guessing. Jared Bowen.
7.3. Okay. So right. not crazy. It's like that's doable.
Totally.
It's acceptable. It's reachable. All right. So we kick things off though with we got some fun kind of mid-table clashes happening this week. It's almost like mid-table versus Brighton Bournemouth is a top half of the table.
That'll be a fun match.
That'll be a fun match. Palace Villa, a suddenly very informed Palace playing a Villa team that kind of keep waiting for them to get going this season. Mm-hmm. Wolves Fulham. I think Wolves have really reset on their season.
Cunha Pereira seems to have breathed some life in that squad, and then Cunha's back on the menu. It feels like post blank it's going to be Isak, Mateta, and Chris Wood. Is that what we're doing?
That red card was a killer.
I meant to bring Cunha in. Now there's Cunha, right? Because Cunha's back. So we're talking about Wolves. Yeah, I brought in Bournemouth defender Hodgson.
Yep.
And he's just been so close to precious clean sheet points, and Bournemouth just can't get it done now that I'm invested.
No, once that the red card was just one of those, like, it kind of killed all their assets too. Yeah. Right. So not a lot anybody could do there. And then Chelsea Southampton. This is kind of where you get into the Cole Palmer territory. There was a question from Football Genius says, is Palmer a buy? I've been off him for a few weeks, but the next few fixtures are scary, even with how poor Chelsea have been. First of all, congrats to Football Genius. It was a genius move to get off Palmer for a number of weeks. You and I didn't do it. We've been stuck with him. He looks terrible. Like, oh my God, that Villa match, he can barely run. It's like, I don't know what's going on with him. It's like he one-on-one with the keeper and he slipped over his own feet. It's just not the Palmer we knew and loved.
Totally. And I thought that even if Chelsea were sputtering, Cole Palmer just strikes me as a guy who loves to ball so much that he'll just go out on the pitch and do his thing, ball out. And I agree with your assessment in that he's weirdly looks disinterested, and maybe he just kind of sees what's going on with the squad, and he's just like, well, this season might be a write-off here, which is crazy. Like, they're still on the precipice of Champions League football. I don't understand why they can't get it together.
Yeah, I don't know either. It feels like he's not working well with the players they've got. Like, I don't really find like any connection between him and Nkunku. There's like, I don't really, all of those players individually, I don't mind, right? But it's sort of like, I don't know. I'm sort of, I've always felt like Pedro Neto is like a little bit of like a shot hog, where it's like he really doesn't look for anybody, right? I just feel
that's Madueke more than they're both. You've got two wingers who do that.
Yeah,
and I think Maresca really needs to be called into question here. It's like shades of Eric Ten Hag's Manchester United, where you've got 10 guys in the outfield who don't really seem to have a plan.
Yeah.
They just kind of think their athleticism and on the ball talent is going to be their tactics. And Nkuku is a great example of this. He's just kind of like flitting in and out of the attack, and there doesn't seem to be any patterns that there are rotations or anything like that. And it's like Reece James playing kind of a de facto right wing. It was all strange. And Sancho on the bench, again, I thought like he was playing well for Maresca, and now he can't get any minutes. It's I just don't understand what's the logic.
I mean, Nicholas Jackson, as frustrating as he was, I think was a really important player for them. I mean, I was just pulling him up a second ago as you were talking, and he had 15 total attacking returns before that injury, right? 9 goals and 6 assists. So I think, and then that doesn't even count all the crazy number of chances that he
blew.
Yeah, blew, exactly. Yeah, that is let me see, 15 XG. Actually, he only had 10.7 XG, so he did not. Or no, he didn't. Yeah, he had 9 goals. I was combining the goals and assists. No, he had 9 goals on 11 XG. So, which is really what you don't want to see in a forward. You really want to see them outperform that XG.
And it looks like he's out until maybe the start of April is what Ben Dinnery assesses. He's got a thigh injury.
Yeah, hamstring. I mean, now like fully 1/3 of the league is. I was just talking to someone about this recently. Like, someone is going to invent a device that that you wear under your shorts and it like protects your hamstrings. Like, I don't know.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that, and I got kind of excited. But
it's like those like vibrating things that like people use for like their muscles.
A Theragun. What is it? Just a Theragun or
like
something?
A Theragun, yeah. But it's gonna be some kind of Theragun that you could wear. So I don't know.
A wearable vibrating.
I don't know. I don't really. I haven't thought this all the way through. But basically, like what is it like? It's like 100 and like there are how many players in the Premier League? Like let's see, 40, 30, 20 teams plus 30 squad players, roughly, so like 600 players. I don't know, something like that. And so but roughly like a third of them right now are out with hamstring injuries. Like we have to figure out how to solve the hamstring injury.
They should play less games.
But that's not going to happen, right? That's like. That's like I would love that. There's a lot of things I would love that would happen, Brandon, including many things in my own country here. But I think that it's there's an opportunity for an inventor out there, Brandon, to find a way to cure the human.
I'll buy some. I'll tell you what. Sounds great.
Me too. My hamstrings bother me all the time as I get older. I didn't even know I had hamstrings until about 2 years ago, and now they hurt all the time. Anyway, all right. So some interesting matches. I think if you didn't have Palmer, I think you have to bring him back in. It's Southampton followed by Leicester over the next 2 weeks. Both at home. I mean, these guys, Southampton and Leicester, are getting crushed right now. Like they are, they are done. They are done and down. Unfortunately, it does look like we're not going to get a relegation battle again, and it's just going to be the 3 promoted teams that all go down, which is always makes me a little sad when that happens. It's like it's always fun when at least one of them finds their way to staying up.
Yeah, it's true. But yes, Southampton just defeated through and through and through as are Leicester, and it seems like Ipswich just don't have any magic. Whatever magic we thought was there is gone. Yeah,
and I mean, Leicester just should never let go of Cooper. He was doing a fine job, Brandon.
So, sure, pass. So, Cole Palmer. Okay, if you're football genius, I feel like if it doesn't screw up your entire game plan, got to get Cole Palmer. I think you have to get him. Now that the real question is, I think the majority of people listening probably still have Cole Palmer. What are the odds that Josh captains Cole Palmer in game week 27?
Not great. I mean, Liverpool hosts Newcastle, which isn't like an amazing fixture, but Newcastle are shipping a lot of goals right now. I mean, they just did it away to Man City a couple weeks ago. They did it again this weekend at home to Forest. I don't know why Liverpool couldn't score 2 or 3 goals. And Salah, I mean, he's basically scoring a goal every single match right now, right? Yeah. And getting an assist in every other match. So it's really, I just don't know. I don't see a lot of appeal in looking past him, other than just the full on, like, dice roll, like my season's going down and I might as well just go for it kind of gamble, right? But I'd rather do that with transfers. Like I just like, I guess I was talking earlier about the captaincy, and that's still how I feel. It's just like, well, why would I go against Salah at the moment? I mean, he's probably the best, maybe going back to his first season at Liverpool, the best form of his career, right? So I don't know. I mean, do you have a counter argument?
I guess the counter argument would be that, and I don't know how much I actually believe this, but it would be that Cole Palmer has a higher ceiling because he's just, I mean, he's had a four goal game this season, and I don't see that coming from Mo, mostly because Liverpool are more tactically disciplined, as we discussed, compared to Chelsea, where Chelsea are just like out there balling, and where Liverpool are like, we'll get the lead, we'll protect the lead. That's sort of a thing. We'll play a little bit more sensibly because we have goals that we want to achieve. Yeah. And Chelsea, it's just more of a street fight. And I think that helps Palmer if they are in full flow. But I guess to be sensible about it, you have to consider like how poor Chelsea have been. And do you suddenly want to wish this Cole Palmer haul into existence that, by what we can surmise from the last month or so of Chelsea, is not coming?
It doesn't feel like it's coming. Do you know how many double-digit hauls, in other words, more than 10 points in a game week that Mo Salah's had so far this season? If you just had to guess.
I'd go, let's see, we played 26 game weeks. I'd say 21.
No, it's fewer than that. That would be amazing. And they've actually played 27 because they've already played their fixture. Right. But it's still, wait, now I lost my count. Hold on. 4, 5,
like 15?
9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 16. Okay. So 16 double-digit hauls in 27 matches. On the season, he has 25 goals in 27 matches and 16 assists in 27 matches. So basically an assist every 2 out of every 3 matches and a goal in virtually every single match. And so there used to be a time when we go on this podcast and debate long and hard about the captaincy, but at the moment and maybe that's like a loss. I don't know. Given all the bells and whistles with the various chips and whatever, it doesn't feel like as much of a loss. But I don't know. I feel like it's just Salah, and I leave it at that.
That's fair. I think that's the rational move. I think I'll just make a final case for Palmer, even though I'll be on Salah captaincy. At least my bus team is Palmer is an opportunity for people who want to jump. Who like, I'm at $1 million and I want to be at 250K going into like the last stretch.
I'm good with that. Yeah. I don't want to be overly kind of like I don't feel sour about it. I just don't like. I feel like I did that already with Palmer earlier this season, where I captained him for a fixture when like I was like the only one who did it, and I was like, I'm gonna basically it was this exact scenario where I'm like, I'm just gonna roll the dice on a Palmer. Oh, I think it was in game week 19, Ipswich away, right? And he got a 2-pointer in that match. And let's just look and see what Mo Salah did.
16 points against West Ham.
So basically, I lost 14 points to everybody in FPL, dropped a couple 100,000 spots. And it was not fun, right? And so
lost more than that if everyone captained him. You lost like 28 points.
I don't want to waste my time here going through everything. Let's see. How far did I drop? Actually, I dropped 250,000 spots. So I did. I was at my highest rank at that point of 366. I dropped to 618 and still have not quite recovered from that, Brandon. So that would be the reason to not maybe not go with Palmer.
I hear you. I'm gonna internalize that.
Yeah, exactly. Think it through. Interesting question from Tulip, who asks, if you still had the assistant managership, would you consider playing out in Spurs this week for 2 home games ahead with potential table bonus for both of them? And I thought that was sort of interesting. I mean, it's obviously not a double game week for Spurs, but they with Man City and Bournemouth at home in the next 2 matches. So 2 teams that you would get tons of points for if you win those matches. Yeah. Spurs have shown an ability to beat or lose to anybody, as we've talked about many times. But when it comes to the assistant managership, to beat anybody is an important thing. And I think in some ways they do seem like a strong candidate for the assistant managership, if only because, like it's a sort of Glasner situation where it's a team that's capable of winning those matches, right?
I agree. And I think that's what I've decided the spirit of the chip is it's not worth being conservative with. So if you play the assistant manager chip going into 27, though, you have to be prepared to not free hit in game week 29 where there are those blanks. So because you cannot play both of those chips at the same time. Right. And 29 would be the third week of the assistant manager.
Yeah, chip. I guess I was thinking for people who activated it like this week or last week or
yeah. Well, yes, 100%. Postecoglou, great pick for 27.
Yeah, I guess I was reading too much. Now rereading that question, I guess it could just be that you'd activate it in that case. Yeah, I would try to use my system manager chip on a double if I can. It does get tricky if you haven't used it already, and you have like all your other chips left still. You probably wouldn't in that case. You probably would have used at least one of them. So
there have been a lot of people on our Discord talking about assistant manager chip just in relation to mini leagues, cups, head-to-head competitions. Yeah. And that could be an incredible edge for the final 3 game weeks of the season.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting.
Just to basically get like 5 to 10 points up on your head-to-head cup rival for the final weeks of the season. So that's another strong strategy to consider.
Yeah, that is something to think about. Like you might just be kind of done in your mini league or something like that. Yeah. But it's like another way to get a little edge there. Let's see. Do we have any other? So Ribsy asked, what are some good forward options looking ahead? So you actually started to talk about this a little bit, Brandon.
Yeah, I've got a watch list.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think for both of us, you and I are both in a position where we have, and I'm just going to use the game's fixture ticker here. You and I both have Watkins, right? So for both of us, we're going to have to solve that problem before game week 29, most likely. I don't plan to bench him, right? So, he doesn't double, anytime. I will. I don't want to look at the FA Cup situation right now, but I think any move that I would make for a forward, and I know this isn't like universal advice, but it would be with 29 in mind. So
Cunha.
Yeah. So Cunha would be a strong candidate. They have a really nice run. Yeah. Fulham at home, Everton at home, Southampton away, West Ham home. So, and Southampton away in 29 as well. Right. So
he's going to be in virtually every squad come game week 29, I would assume, because Mateta, which would be another player at the top of my watch list right now, will blank in 29. Mateta will come to later on because Palace have a confirmed double in game week 32.
Terrible double.
So both aways against Man City and Newcastle. But all the praise that we're heaping on Palace sort of still applies. So you've got Wood, Mateta, Cunha, and then Isak. I think those are the 4 guys who are kind of like rotating in my mind. Yeah. Chris Wood has, in air quotes, like tough fixtures in 27 and 28 with Arsenal and City. But he's another one. Like Cunha and Wood seem essential for 29 because Wood has Ipswich away.
Yeah. Wood for 28, Man City at home, like that's still rated as like I guess it's a 4 on the fixture. I would probably knock it down to like a 3, right? Like from a Chris Wood perspective. From Chris Wood's point of view, that is a 2 or a 3.
And even in a match against Newcastle where he really didn't touch the ball at all, he still found a way to find the ball and impact the game and get a fantasy return.
Yeah.
So he's remains an elite pick this season. So it feels like Cunha followed by Wood in the order of like game week deadlines. And my thinking with game week 29 is to not free hit, and I would be benching Isak because I don't want to do hokey cokey with Isak when he is triple captain material in game week 32. So like benching Isak and Salah is my plan right now, and everyone else goes.
Yeah, same. That's my thinking as well. I'm glad that we both resisted the temptation to move Isak. I don't know if you were ever actually tempted, but it was a recommended move for me in the from FPL review. Just basically going Isak to Watkins, and I did not do that, and I'm certainly happy that I didn't. I mean, I've had the points this week, but also just long term. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, at some point there's a wild card too, so that is something to think about. The annoying thing for me is I have a goalkeeper problem that I'm going to have to think about going into 29. Like decide whether I even want to play a goalkeeper or not, and just roll
without. That's a boss move. That's a really boss move.
Well, it's like I do not in general think it's worth a it's worth a transfer.
Yeah. And then you get the double from Henderson in 32 anyway, which is fine, totally fine.
Yeah.
I do think with the wild card, I think the wild card now is just strictly tied to my bench boost, and I have no idea when I'm going to bench boost, but it would be wild card before I bench boost.
We'll have more clarity after the FA Cup match this weekend, I think, right? We'll know, we'll have a better sense of who's going to need to reschedule their fixtures and stuff like that. All right. So let's see. I think that might cover us. We've done more than an hour now. And there's a short turnaround here. So let's end things, Brandon. If you are an American, as we are, and you're going to try to watch some of these matches in between meetings, Brandon. Maybe you're working from home and doing. I have to go into the office for 2 of these 3 match days, so it's even trickier for me. But if you could only watch one match during this midweek, what would be the match that you'd want, Brandon? Which match seems like the most fun? Which match makes fantasy fun again?
Yeah, Palace Villa jumps out at me as the Tuesday fixture. And then, I mean, it's just kind of like basic. Well, almost all of these fixtures look phenomenal on Wednesday. Brentford-Everton feels like very evenly matched right now. Spurs-City always kind of delivers in some kind of insanity. Yeah. And then Liverpool-Newcastle could be a dogfight.
It's like, in some ways that's the most... It's like you and I almost both try not to pick that one, like the best one. But I agree that should be a really fun, and it's a very important match for Newcastle. If they were able to take a point from that, they're now tied. They're level on points with Man City.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to predict, actually, I'll give you 3 options here.
Okay.
Do you, who will end up in the Champions League? Newcastle, Man City, or Newcastle and Man City? So right now they are both tied in 4th place. They are both 3 points behind Forest, and all have played the same number of matches.
It's crazy because just like below them, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Villa, all within 1 to 2 points of them. So it's like neither of them could make it.
I know if Villa had just played a little better the last few weeks, I would favor them for one of the spots.
Yeah, they surely had what can now be considered the most successful January window, just considering the instant impact that Asensio and Rashford have had. So I like them going forward. My question about Newcastle, I'm just looking up the Joelinton injury and when he might be coming back. He's expected back mid-March. I feel like if Joelinton were fit, I think Newcastle would be good for the run-in. But as it is, kind of like some question marks. And you mentioned that they can leak a lot of goals, which can be a real problem when you're in the hunt for the top 4, top 5. So
I would
not answering the question.
No, but I'll do it for you. I think it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Newcastle. I think Forest hang on to a Europa League spot, and that Villa get another Europa League spot.
I back Forest to hang on, especially if they beat Arsenal at home this midweek slate. That's huge for them, and they have every opportunity to beat Arsenal.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, that is the one that I'm most interested in, the Forest Arsenal one. I'll go with that one because I think in Liverpool Newcastle that should obviously be a banger, but Forest Arsenal is low key maybe the most important match.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah. I mean, if Newcastle lose away to Liverpool, oh well, right? It's like, that's like it's going to be the hardest match you have this season, and then you've got 12 more to hold on. Yeah. But if either Arsenal or Forest can, I mean, especially Forest, if Forest can win that match, I think you're right. They're in great spots.
It's quite an interesting, Chase. You're lamenting the lack of a relegation battle, but this battle for the top 4, top 5 is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, the fourth place trophy. Arsene Wenger's famous fourth place trophy. So, all right. Well, I think that's a good place to end on, Brandon. Thanks everyone for listening. And we'll be back at midweek after Thursday's match with our with a kind of recap, I guess, and maybe it'll be a little bit of a game week 28 preview. It'll be an FA Cup weekend, but we can at least run through everything that happened over the weekend, Brandon. And I want to say thank you to our Patreon supporters. Thank you to Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner-Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Chin, Babas Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock. I'm seeing Jess Halstead here. Is it Jess Halstead? I think I say Jesse, but I think is it Jess?
Looks like maybe we had a typing error. Arrow? God, I cannot talk right now. Looks like a clerical error here.
Okay. All right. Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swan. Be funny if I just been saying that wrong for like 3 years.
Hilarious.
Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Ezzy Desi, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Cal Varabi, Brian Clark, Thomas Tisloff, Fro Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadaki, Rishi Nigam, Nolan Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, James Murray Wood, James C., James Holland, Skelly, and Francis Mann and Craig at Total Maths Tutoring. Thank you to everybody who supports the podcast. If you want to say thank you and you don't feel like becoming a Patreon supporter or can't do it for any reason, you can just go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast and give us a star review. If you can write an actual written review, that's even better. But thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, cheers. Good luck in midweek. We'll see you on the other side.
Bye.